Alright, welcome to the lesson 9 of modern ABAP programming, and today we are going into the introduction of entity manipulation language. So entity manipulation language is the modern way to read and change data in ABAP RESTful application programming model, which is commonly known as RAP. So in this lesson, we are going to create a customer return request application, and we'll build a RESTful ABAP application that is going to manage customer return requests. And so this business object is going to be able to create return requests, read return requests, update return request, delete return request, validate business rules, autofill fields with determinations, add value helps for better user interface. And of course, if you are new to this channel, please consider subscribing, hit the like button, and share this video. If you don't know what the business object is, in the previous lesson 8, we also gave extensive explanation of business objects. So the link will be in the description, and you can also watch the business objects video. So the lesson agenda for lesson 9 is also in six steps. The first is database table design. Of course, if you're already familiar, you've been following from lesson 1 to lesson 8, you should be familiar with how to create a database table using Eclipse ADT already. But I will also show you how to create this if you are new to this channel. And we're going to create sub package and sample data for the table that we created in the first step. And then the third step, we are going to use the object generator wizard. So this will actually generate CDS entities, the CDS behavior, service definition, and binding. And we're going to publish and preview our application. So that means we're going to activate the service, preview the Fiori Elements app. And the fifth step is that we will add the ABAP logic, which is the entity manipulation language. And right here, we handle validations, determinations, entity manipulation language, read and modify entities. And finally, we have to also work on improving the user interface. So we're going to improve the field layout and going to set some fields to be read only, and also add value help annotations. Okay, so if you're happy to follow me in these lessons, give me a like and like this video so that YouTube can also recommend this video to as many persons who want to learn the modern ABAP. Alright, so the first step is the database table design, and for every ABAP RESTful application, it starts with a database table, and this is where your data ultimately lives. This is where your data resides. So for our customer return request application, we are going to create a table called Z return request. You're going to see it. And now, so there's actually one important thing that we should also consider, is that in the RESTful application program model, we actually work with two tables, not just one. And so the first table is also called the active table. So there are two tables, the active and the drafts table. All right. So on the left hand side here, you can see the active table. So the Z return request table that we are going to create, it stores confirmed and saved data that has been fully committed by the user. So while the second table, which is going to be the draft table, so it's going to be, maybe we'll add a D to the name to differentiate the name. And this stores in progress work. So for instance, imagine when the user is working and then it's time for break, so he needs to leave. So those work that are in progress will be stored in the draft table. Now you see the naming convention here, Z return request will be our main table, the active table. Then the Z return request _ D will be the draft table. So the purpose that's it will enable drafts, enabled transactions so that users can save partial data without committing to the database. All right. So this is the content of our active table. So you see here we have client, which is the primary key, and then we have another UUID here. So this ID is automatically generated by the system. So if you use this data type SYSUUID _X16, so you get internally generated number. And then these are the other fields. So already this we've explained in previous lessons. So this is customer ID field, order ID field, return reason ID, return status, return date, refund amount, currency, and then we have data type, built-in data types we are using here, character, currency. Okay. However, it's better to use your own defined data element. We covered this in one of the lessons also. Create your own data element and then use it here. Okay. So now let's go to Eclipse and create the database table. So there are basically 6 steps of how to create your table in Eclipse. Open Eclipse, ADT, set your table parameters, define your key fields, add business fields, add the admin fields, and then you activate. So I'll open Eclipse now. Of course, we need to create a package. All right, so let's say you have created your package, and then the next step or the first step we're going to do now is to create a database. So our database, we're going to create a table called return request table, and with table fields, keys, all right. And this table will contain all the customer requests. Yeah, so this will not work for your local server or your local system. So you need to be connected to a cloud project. And this is a package I already created inside my cloud project, right? So if I click on F5 to see the full content, so I want to create a database table, and for that, I just need to right click on this, my package, go to new and select order repository ABAP package, type database. So database table comes out next. So let's give the name of the database table. So I call it Z return request and put it as 2. Give a description. So let's say customer returns request table. So let's click on next. No transport request. Say training system. So let's click on finish. And so yeah, we have our database table created, return requests, and of course the first thing you have is your client ID. You have an ABAP.client here, not null. I've also covered it in our lessons. If you have not been following, you can check out our lessons from lesson 1 to lesson 8. So now we're going to fill in with the other fields of the table. So we see the first field, which is the client field with the data type ABAP.client. And not null means this is mandatory, okay? And then we see that this is a transparent table, and so every transparent table in SAP must start with the client field. Client field is mandatory, and the second field is the return UUID. So it's going to generate a 16-bit number for us. So this is a unique identifier, and this is like a simulation of what you have in SAP CRM, the GUID, the global unique identifier. So the great thing about using this data element is that ABAP runtime automatically assigns the UUID when a new record is created. So no sequence numbers, no manual ID management, very important. We have our customer ID with character, data type with 10. So it's also recommended to use data element here. You can create your own data elements and use them right here. We want to, optimize the code. We can do this later. All right. Then come our business fields. We have the order ID, the reason for the return status. Okay, uses 2 character code. That's why we have 2 here. For instance, OP means open, and PR means processing, and CL means closed. So then we also have the return date. Okay, now refund amount, you need to specify the amount currency code semantics this way. So that means you are saying the currency here is what you use for the amount. All right. Now the final point is this one here. These are called the administrative fields. This right here, you have local created at, last changed by, last changed at. Okay, and what this is doing here is that you're going to know who created this record, when, and this record was created by, at what time, when was it last changed by who, and what time was it changed. All right, so these fields are actually used for what we call e-tag, which is based on concurrency control. All right. So let's save this. Let's save, Control S. You can also do Control F2 for ABAP syntax check, Control F3 to activate. So if I right click, yeah, since this is a cloud project and it's a training ground, I'm not able to even open it with a graphical user interface, but I have it also in my on-premise system. So if I open the project on my on-premise system, I'll be able to open the table also using the SAP GUI. So let me go to my on-premise system. So I have the same table here. So if I open it, okay, this is the same table inside my on-premise system, and if you right click here, you go to open with, you can see right here open with SAP GUI. So when I click on it, it's going to open the table for me. You can see. So this is exactly what you do when you use the SAP GUI, graphical user interface. So you can see your fields, and this is what you are actually used to before. You can see the currency is being maintained here. Right. All right. So let's go back to the cloud project. Let me minimize this. All right. So right here, we have created our table. We have activated it. And then what we need to do next is I'm going to create a class. We're going to write an ABAP class that will insert data to this our table, because if you right click and then you say open with that data preview to see the content of the table, you see that the content of the table is empty. We don't have any data in our table, right? So we don't want to fill it with data. We want to fill it with values for return, customer ID, order ID. So let's create a class. We already covered it in our lessons, also between lesson 1 to 10 to 8. So have a look on one of the lessons that we covered how to fill in, how to create classes actually. All right, so to create a class, so this is my package. I can just right click on this and say go to new, go to ABAP class, and then I'm going to name this class zfill return underscore data. So this will fill the table with return data. Okay. So of course, if you are creating this kind of class that you want to see output on your console, you need to implement this interface if00 underscore adt underscore class run. So let's click on OK. Click on next. So it's a training system. We don't have a transport request. Click on finish. All right. So now you see that we have our class, public, final, create, interfaces, the implementation of the class. So right here inside this method, this interface method that we are extending, if00adt underscore classrun is where we will write our code, the code that will implement, or the code that will add data to our table, our database table that we created. All right, so now this is our class, fill return data, and we just write this code. This we already covered it in one of the lessons, how to fill your database tables with values. So we are using the value keyword here, and then these are fields. Then we're passing the value for that field. So now the request date, interestingly, is giving this error. Say the old variant of SY datum should not be used in current ABAP language version. So this actually modem ABAP, so it's giving us a warning that we should not use this. So we're going to correct this. Interestingly, I did this project in the on-premise server and this was accepted. So this is one of the reasons why modern ABAP is interesting, right? So let's fix this error. Yeah, so for that, we are going to use this class cl underscore ABAP underscore context underscore info, then use this method get underscore system date, more like a class method, static method. You don't need to define an object to use this. And then lv user cl ABAP underscore context underscore info, get user technical name. So this is what we are going to use to get our date. And so in our request date, we use lv underscore today, which will get today's date instead of using sy datum. Okay, then request date, we just say today's date minus 2, another one today's date minus 5, today's date minus 1, and today's date minus 3. And that is how we work with the modern data instead of using sy datum. Okay, all right, so let's save our table. Control save, Control F2 to do syntax check. There are no errors found, and then Control F3 to activate. And now when we execute as ABAP application console, click on OK. You see that in the console, we get sample return request created successfully. Okay, so if we go to our table, and then you can just right click anywhere and say open with data preview, we should see the contents has been updated. So you see our clients here, we see this return UUID, unique identifier, the customer ID, just some sample data that we added, the order ID, the products ID, the return reason. So DF means defected, WRO means wrong, DAM means damaged. All right. So these are the return reasons, and you can see the quantity, the return status, 01 for open, 02. Yeah, so I updated the return status to carry the right description. So OP is for open and CL is for closed, the return status of a request closed. So if we save this, Ctrl S, Ctrl F3 to activate. Now you have to execute it. So let's execute ABAP application console. Okay, so sample requests created successfully. So now let's go to our database table one more time. Right click on this, open with data preview. Is refreshing. Yeah, so now you see quantity, return status, open, processing, open, CL closed. All right, and of course this return reason DFE means defective item, wrong item, damaged item. So our table is set. Now we see the amount, refund amount, local created by, and then created at. All this will update when I make changes. So it will show my username that I created this and when and what I changed in the database. Okay. So yeah, so our database is set. So let's see what is the second thing that we need to do. Now we've done the creating table in Eclipse editing. We've done all these 6 steps. So this is the table definition, return requests, and then you define the fields. You add you add a unique ID key and E tag fields, which is these administrative fields. And then optionally, which I also recommend, you create your custom data element. Yeah, for the second step, we need to create a sub package. Okay, a sub package so that we'll have all our business objects that we are going to create. We'll put all the business objects inside that sub package. So let's go to Eclipse. So somehow I've not been able to create another sub package inside my package. I wonder why that is, but let's try that again. So this is my package. I want to create a sub package. Let's say new ABAP package. So let's call it Z. So the description will be objects for OData UI service. Then I'll click on next. So it's not allowing me to create a sub package. So the training system is not allowing me to create a sub package. I don't know why that is so. Then let's skip the sub package part. But if you are using your own system, you'll be able to create a sub package. So the reason why you're creating a sub package is that all the business objects, business definition, class definition, and class implementation will go to these sub packages. All right. So because it's not allowing us to create a sub package, what we need to do next now is that we are going to the step 3, which is the object generator wizard. So what this does is, so we have our database table already, and so Fiori element application, they need a lot more object than just a table. So we need things like CDS views, we need behavior definitions, we need implementation class, we need service definition, we need service binding. And so these things, the object generator wizard will do it for us automatically. So it will create everything for us. And once it's done, we have a full functioning app that will create, that will read, that will update, and that will delete. Okay, so no ABAP code is written yet. All right, so let me show you. So the object generator wizard will generate in total 8 objects. All right, so how do we do it? We have the CDS view entity, behavior pool, project view, service definition, behavior definition, draft table, metadata extension, and the service binding. These are the objects that the object generator is going to create for us. So now how do we do it? To go to Eclipse. So in Eclipse, right click on your table. So where is my table? This is a table that we are working with. Z return requests to. So if you right click on it, you have the option generate ABAP repository objects. So when you click on this, then you're going to be asked to select from this. So first is ABAP RESTful application programming model, OData UI5 service, OData web API service. So what we are developing is an OData UI5 service. So we click on this. So you can see the details here. This generator creates all repository objects that are relevant for a business object. Let me increase it. All right. And for a RAP service. So this end result is a full-blown RAP UI service. An OData UI service makes it possible to consume a RAP service with a Fiori element UI or other UI clients. All right. So these are following objects that will be created, service binding, service definition, and all. So you'll see it shortly. All right. So when you select on OData UI service, just click on next. Okay, so it's prompting us to select a package, but I'm going to use my existing package. So the name of my existing package is, so this is the name of my existing package. So let's create on this. All right, so let's click on next. So it's saying fetching initial data. All right, so then we are faced with this. So all right, so the first thing that you see here is the object on which the root entity of the business object is based on, which is the reference object will now be our database table, which is this. This is our database table. So click on data model. So this is the data model. I think for cloud, it automatically brings out the the entity name for you. So if you are on a local system, you have to enter this name. So let's give it an alias. You can just say return request 2. Okay, click on behavior. So it's interesting that the cloud project automatically filled it for us, our behavior implementation class. Like I said, if it was a local server or you're using your on-premise system, you have to fill this implementation class name yourself, the draft table, like I explained before. So then we can click on service projection entity. So it has created the CDS entity name, and then the service projection behavior, it has already also created a name for us. The service binding, service definition, it's created a name for us also. Then the service binding. All right, so click on next. So it's generating the artifacts. So basically, so we can see what it has generated for us, the procedure object. So let me show you the slide. So basically, the generator wizard will give us 8 objects. So you have the reference object, CDS entity name, business object, behavior implementation class. So if you are doing it on your own, then this is how your naming convention should be. All right, ZR for your entity name, ZBP_R for your behavior implementation class. Then your draft table should have a D at the end. For your service projection entity name, it should be ZC, all right? And the rest follows the same way. So we have service binding name. This is the example in the slide, but it's different from what we are programming. And then the binding type, we are using OData v4 for our binding type, all right? So you can also as well cross-check what we have. So you can see service definition here, service binding. Then the object type, we have the SAP object node type, SAP object type. These are all what has been created. So they are basically what I showed you on the screen, and these are the repository object that will be created. Just click on next. We don't have a transport request, so just click on finish. And yeah. So we have successfully created our business object. So the next step is what we're going to do now is to publish and then preview. So you should now look for service binding editor. So let's go to our Eclipse. Okay, so in the editor, you're going to look for your service binding. It's going to tell you service binding was created successfully. So open the service binding. So when you create that, you get this screen right here. And so here we can see add service. The service is already here. So we can see publish. So publish operation in progress. Do not modify, close or refresh the service binding. So we're going to wait. So once publishing is done, we're going to see our entity and we're going to get a browser URL. All right. So we are creating our first application. It's going to take a while, so we wait. So now you see that our entity return request, you can see right here, has been created. All right. So you can use this URL, service URL, or you can click on preview, open Fury Element app, click on preview. It will open it in our browser. So this is it opening in our browser. We have the SAP logo here. We have our account symbol here, and it's still loading. Now you can see it coming out. Now we have it. All right. Okay. So you see that we have a Fury Element app. You can see the fields, return UID. Of course, if you had used data element, it will use the data element field that is specified here instead of these names that are not user friendly. All right, so you can see now here you can create, you can see your create button here. You can, if you create something, you can delete. Okay, So let's click on the create button and let's see if we can create a customer request. So when you click on create, it opens another screen, right? So now we have generated core data entity, all right? So return UID is automatically created, which is what you see at the top of the screen. So let's see customer ID. So let's see, let's just look for similar type for consistency. So our customer ID is, let's see, C135. Order ID, you see right here, see draft updated. You can see that we're in the draft mode. And then order ID, let's copy one of the order and then paste, just change a few values for consistency. All right, so paste it right here. Let's say the order ID, it's 11. So product ID, so let's say here jacket. Return reason, of course, if you want to optimize the code, you can now use value help, which we'll also look at on how to do this. Return reason, create right here. So let's say wrong size, ROWRO. Then for quantity, you can just put the quantity here, 2. Return status, open. So you see here, request date, you can select the date. You have this because we use the current date class and not just SY datum. So today is Saturday 7th. Let's click on this. Refund amount. What do we say? 25,000. Refund amount, let's say 500. So this is the currency. You can actually select the currency. So let's use euros. See euros here, created by, created on. You see those administrative data that we added to the table, changed by. This is my ID and the date that it was changed and the time. So now that if you are done, you can then, you see that draft updated, you can say create. So you say object has been created and you see that this return ID has been created. So you can actually also edit the object that has been created, right? So let's go back, all right? So now you can click on go without entering any filter to bring all the results of the table. Click on go, so we see everything, right? These are all the data from the table. The one that we just created is this one right here, the last one. You can just, this is the last one we just created, the last customer request. Just create like this, so you see the whole details. You can see edit here and you can delete here. So delete also works. So let's go back and delete an item. So let's delete this one. It's either you delete or you can change the status. For instance, if you click on it, it will open the item details. You can edit. So let's change the status from processing to closed. You can just say CL. All right. So let's save this. Now the status is closed. So if we go back to the table, we can see right here that the status, return status has changed to CL, which is closed. And so likewise, you can delete. If you want to delete, you can click here, right here, and click on delete. Delete object, blah, blah, blah. So you click on delete and then it's gone, it's deleted, right? So in the create mode, let's say, okay, let me put it in the edit mode. Let's say this value and let's edit this. So if we put a negative refund value, let's say minus 2999. And when you save this, so it's still accepted. The value is the negative value is still accepted. So this is not okay in normal functionality because you have to control this, right? And this is happening because we have not added any business logic. And that is what we are going to do next. So to add business logic for verifications and what can be edited, what can be updated, what can be deleted, we need to do this using entity manipulation language, which is adding the ABAP language. Which is adding the ABAP logic. Okay? So these are the 6 steps for publishing your OData service and previewing the app. You open the service binding, you activate, you click on publish, you select the entity, you click on preview, and then you test the CRUD operations, you create, you read, you update, and you delete requests. So no business logic yet. All right, so let's go on now and we add the ABAP logic, which is called the entity manipulation language. So the concept of entity manipulation language, so EML is a special set of ABAP statements that is actually designed specifically for the RESTful ABAP programming, which is called the RAP model. So when you are inside a validation or a determination, your business logic will not just go directly to the database. Okay, so instead, you are communicating through something we called the transactional buffer. So you should see the transactional buffer like a temporary workspace that will hold the user's current in-progress changes before they are finally committed to the database. Now, the entity manipulation language actually gives us two main statements for working with this buffer. And the first statement is what? The read entities, and the second one is the modify entities. Follow me carefully now. So the read entities, what this does is it will read data from that transactional buffer. So you use this in determinations when you have maybe, for example, calculated a derived value and then you want to store it back. So the read entities, what happens is this will read data from the transactional buffer. So when do you use this? You will use this to get maybe values that the user has entered, so you can check them or use them in calculation. So this is where you use the read entities. Now for the modify entities, it is used to modify or edit data to the transactional buffer. So you use this in determinations when you have calculated a derived value and want to store it back, okay? And then you almost always use the addition in local mode. So with both of these methods, so this actually will bypass authority checks during internal processing, which is what you want when your own code is calling itself, all right? So now, before we can actually implement any logic, we need to declare it. So in the RESTful model, what happens is you declare your validations and determinations in what we call the behavior definition. All right. So this is how the behavior definition looks like. So let's go to Eclipse. So let's open our behavior definition for this our business object. Behavior definition starts with ZR. So we come to behavior definitions right here. So this one, you can see ZR return request 2. See behavior definition for our ZR return request 2. So double click on this. So we can see at the behavior definition is using a managed implementation. So managed implementation means that the functionalities are automatically handled by SAP for us. All right. So at the moment, you can see the functionalities it can create, it can update, and it can delete. So these are the methods that our business object can carry out. So that's why it's called behavior definitions, the actions that it can carry out. So then we can also add 3 validations and 1 determination. Validation and 1 determination. So validation means what? To carry out validation. All right. So we can see here, define behavior for this. And this is a table that we are defining the behavior for. And this is our draft table, our e-tag master, local last change that. Then also for the log master, we can also add this. So authorization is global. And these fields will be read only, return UID, UUID created by, so it will only be read, you cannot update it. And you see that this return UID, the number is managed, so it's determined by the system, not by you. And we have this method create, update, and delete. So our draft actions are activate, discard, edit, resume, and then prepare. So these are the draft actions. And for mapping, we have our returning UID is mapped to this, customer ID is mapped to this, order ID is mapped to this, and so forth and so forth. All right. So let's add our validation under this one. So validations means that checks, So we're going to create validation to validate refund amount, to validate customer, to validate return reason. All right. So this is you write the keyword validation, then write the variable or the method name. So validate refund amount on save. So when you click on save for the field, that's an in creation mode for the field refund amount, is going to trigger this method. Likewise, validate customer. So when you click on save and then you are in create mode, what field? Customer ID is going to run a validation checks on customer ID, and then likewise validate return reason on save in creation mode. Which field are we validating? Return reason. All right. So, and of course, you're going to get error that this does not exist yet. So we need to create this method. Now we can also add determination. So the determination will run on modify, okay, meaning that whenever the record is created or changed. All right, so let's create this. So you can create them by just saying Control 1. All right, Control 1, it will tell you add all 4 missing methods. Add method validation. So you can just do all at once. So let me just click add all 4 missing methods for a quick fix. So it takes us to the business behavior definition class for our return request. So you can see you are already familiar with this. So we have private methods. All right. So the main purpose here is our methods. So let's start with the validate customer. Then you see here validate refund amount. You see here validate return reason. So what are we validating for? Unsafe. So we actually need to go to the implementation part actually. So let's start with validate amount. All right, so let's walk through what's happening here. Okay, so we start with the read entity statement. So this is the read entity statement, and then we specify the business object. So which business object are we reading the entity from? And that's the ZR entity. So you can go to your behavior definitions. So anyone that has with R, that's your entity. Okay, and then we specify the in local mode. So, and we will tell it to read the refund amount field. So that's why we say fields. Which field are you reading? The refund amount, and also there has to be currency also. So this is a field that we are reading, and they with corresponding keys. So this part means that we read the records whose keys are in the keys importing parameter. So those are the records that the user has changed. All right. So we are reading the records which the user have changed here, and then we pass the results to data. So we then loop through the results. If the refund amount is 0 here, we are looping through the results. Result is passed here. Loop at return request into data return request. So if return request and then the refund amount is less than or equal to 0, we tell the framework that do not save this record. Okay, so now we are doing two things here. First, we add the records key to failed return request. So this is a record key we are defining here. We then add it to failed return request. And then the second thing is that we tell the framework to show these error messages. So we add an entry to reported return requests. All right. So this is how we send the message back to the user, and we create a message object using this one, this new message. We are creating a message object here. So with ID Z return messages. So we are going to create this, the number 001. We're going to create this severity error, and then this last part will just highlight the field in red. Okay, so now, so this is the same code I'm showing here, the validate refund amount implementation. So the percentage TKY field group is what understanding. Because it's a shorthand for the full technical key of the record. So the client and the UUID together. So using this percentage key and then TKY, it is safer and more readable than just addressing each key field individually. All right. So it's a combination of two key fields we are trying to access with the percentage TKY. So of course, we need to also create a message class because we are saying we attach the new message here. So we need to create the message class. So before I create a message class, let us just finish with the second validation. The second validation would be to validate the customer. It will check if the customer exists. All right. So the structure is similar to what we already did. All right, so let me show you in Eclipse. So validate customer if the customer exists. So we go to the implementation for the validate customer right here, and then we're going to write our code. I'll just paste the code here and then explain. So for the validate customer ID, of course, we are reading which entity are we reading? The ZR return request to entity. And then what field are we interested in? The customer ID. And with corresponding keys means the current field that the user is working with, and then return our results to return request. So we are looping into the result that we have into this work area. And so we read the customer ID field. Then for each record, we do a select single against the CDS view. So in this example, Z1 underscore customer, and we are checking whether the customer exists. So if the customer exists, that's if SY sub RC is greater than or equal to 0. Or let me say if SY sub RC is not 0 after the select, the customer was not found. And so we'll just fill the field and reported structures just like that. And you have to notice that we are reading the CDS view entity, not the database table directly. All right. So we are reading the CDS view entity. We are not working with the database directly. So this is the right approach in our RESTful model and always stays in the abstraction layer. And then we append the error messages one more time. So we'll create an error message class for this later. And finally, okay, so there's one important mistakes that I should take note here. In this loop, we are running a select statement. So because it's for learning purposes, okay, but in real production, you should not do this. So in production, what you do is you will collect all the customer ID first and then do a select single for all entries in order to avoid performance issues. So that's the best approach. So this method set default status. I get some intelligence here. Yeah, so we just also update the set default status code. Yeah, so we also update the set default status code. So let's do a fix quick for this. The determination is here. So let's see. Yeah, and likewise, we just also write the code for validate return reason. Yeah, so you can just ask for the code if you're interested in seeing the code on how to validate your customer, validate customer. We also validate the price, validate the refund amount. So just leave a comment in the comment section and I will post it there for you to have a copy of it, or you can just write your own code. For now, I'll just remove the validate return reason. Let's see, can make the other one to work first. Then you can add, okay, so let's predict it using AI. So let's also remove it from the behavior definition. We created validation here. To validation, we need to add them to draft determine action prepare. So add those determination here also to avoid error. Yeah, so these are just the method the validation we're going to be working with at the moment. So validate refund amount. So on save during creation mode, and the field is refund amount. The field is refund amount, and then the method called validate customer. When we are saving and in creation mode, the field is customer ID. Determination is set default status on modify. So when you are modifying, use default status. Then our draft actions activate, discard, edit, resume. So you need to also add this draft determine action prepare. So validation, validate refund amount, and then validate customer. You pass in or you map the values. So if we go to our class, let me control save this, let me activate. If we go to our class, we need to implement these methods. So you will see here, set default status, validate customer, validate refund amount, and then the the method implementation. So this is for the set default status and the customer implementation for valid customer. Likewise, method implementation for valid refund amount. So you can also add another method, validate return reason. So let's activate this. So once these are activated, what we do, let's go and refresh the screen and see if our validation is working, especially for the price. Refresh the page. It's still loading. So let's check the price. If we enter negative number, if this will work. So let's go on edit. At the moment, we still have minus 299. So let's say minus 229. So if we save, so you see here that resolve data inconsistency or save changes. So there's an error which we need to maintain in the error messages. All right. So resolve data inconsistency because you are not supposed to put negative value. Yeah. So and then what other one? Customer ID. And let's see if we can create another customer with this same ID. So it should not. Anyway, before I go, okay. Discard changes here. So click on discard. Before I go further, let's just create the message classes so that we get good messages on the UI. So to create a message class, so let's see my package. So just right click on the package. You can just go to new, go to other repository ABAP objects. So search for message. You see message class here. Next. So here we give a name to it. So we can just say return request error messages. So click on next, click on finish. So here you can enter the number. All right. So for our number we have for 001. So what will be our short text? Refund amount. Refund amount must be greater than 0. Okay. So what other message class should we create? So let's say 002. Customer ID already exists. Of course, you can also use placeholders for this. So let me control save. Let's save this and let's control F2 check, control F3 to activate. All right. So let's go to our Fiori application again. So let's try to create a customer ID, create a new customer. We have one of the ID to be C1007, product ID. Let me just see, E5 computer 4534. The reason, let's say defective, quantity 1 or 10, return status open, order ID. All right, so let's click on create and see. So you can see that customer ID already exists. The phone amount was greater than 0, so this is not supposed to be showing here. All right, so refresh the stuff, refresh the Fiori app, and let's see all our data. Let's try to edit. Click on one, click on edit, and let's put a negative value here for our price, and let's see for our amount, and let's see what we get. So refund amount must be greater than 0, which is okay. So we need to close this. So let's clear this and then click on save. So now object is saved. So if we go back, so see that we have C1001, right? So let's see if we want to create a customer ID, and we'll now type C1001. Just put some random order ID here, product ID, refund reason, let's say defective, quantity 1, open. Oh, we need to select date. Let's click this on this, amount 200. All right, so let's create. Click on create. So we're getting customer ID already exists as the error that we have. So you have to close it. Each time you get an error, you need to clear them so that you don't get errors from previous messages. So close this right here and then come over here and close it. So this customer ID already exists, so we cannot create anymore. All right, so this is how far we'll go with this. So in upcoming videos, we can just make some adjustments, make the UI to look better, and yeah, so this is how you can create your RESTful ABAP programming application, and also using entity manipulation language in modern ABAP. If you are new to this channel, please don't forget to like this video and please subscribe to encourage me to make more videos, and see you in the next video.